Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're just like, fuck it, I'm done with this shit? Well, I've got the app for you. Now imagine a world where you can keep track of all the things that you've said fuck it to without having to lift a finger. Well, except to, type, of course. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, staring at a mountain of tasks that you just can't be bothered with. You've got deadlines looming, emails piling up, and a to-do list longer than a CVS receipt. But instead of tackling that shit head on, you decide to channel your inner honey badger and just say, fuck it. That's where the fuck it list comes into play. It's like a to-do list, but for all the things that you decided to give zero fucks about, whether it's that project you've been procrastinating on for weeks or that annoying coworker who keeps inviting you to their essential oils party. The Fuck It List app has got you covered. And I know what you're thinking. Well, how does this glorious app even work? Well, let me break it down for you like a Kit Kat bar. The Fuck It List app is a CLI tool powered by some seriously snarky code. Not really, it's just Python, it's Click. So I guess the first thing we should start with is what are we actually even using? So we're going to be importing Click, and we're going to be using PonyRM because it's an easy way to actually list all this stuff out. We're going to be using Rich, which is a rich, pun intended, library for making pretty looking console stuff. Anyway, to set up a database with Pony, all you got to do is this little thing on the screen right there. And then to create objects or entities or entries or whatever you want to call them, we just have to turn a class into a magical thing with a table name, and then we give it some stuff that we want to save, and that is essentially it. So here we're just giving it an ID and then a display ID, and this is going to be important later because we're going to sort by that. So if you remove stuff for whatever reason, if you change your mind and you actually do decide to give a fuck about it, then that is how you would do it. And the first thing we want to do to actually get this show on the road is actually create a group for our CLI, since we're going to have a few different CRUD operations happening all at the same time, because this is the only thing you actually do care about. We're actually going to get rid of that name thing because I don't think it actually does anything. This is the first time in any of these videos that we've seen the past context decorator for Click. And all that does is similar to Django and some of these other frameworks. You can actually pass in context, which is just some arbitrary dictionary of stuff that gives us information. So in this case, what we're using it for is so we can launch a list items command by just typing in the name. So Python main.py or whatever your alias is to. And that list items is actually going to look something like this. So we're going to use the DB session to make sure that we're pulling in the stuff for the database, creating a session for that. And then we're just going to use that object to select all our items, and we're going to order it by that display ID that we set. We're going to use console to print stuff out. This is not yet. That console thing is erroring out because I forgot to paste this thing up here. So to actually generate all the tables and everything for Pony, we have to bind SQLite to our thing, and then, db.mapping to generate the tables. Migrations with PonyRM are a little odd, but for generating your initial tables, this is actually very straightforward. So it'll make the tables if they don't exist. And then we also created this console thing from rich.console, which is going to be technically our virtual terminal that we're going to be using for all the things that you care about. And then this is how we actually create a table in the terminal with rich. And this is the stuff that you add in there. And we're also going to check this stuff for the item. And this should actually be completed, and this should actually be down there. And if we add our thing down here, we can actually run the command, and it should actually create the database. So if I open our file explorer, we can see that we have that SQLite file that we created, and our list already returned as empty because we haven't added anything yet. So in order to add stuff, we're going to do some very fancy stuff and just add this function. We're going to call it click command. Adding stuff to the database is really simple because we're just using another click command that's using that CLI group up here that we created to tether a new command to it. And this one is going to have a single argument of description because we don't give a fuck about anything else. And then with the DB session, which technically we could use as a decorator also. So you can do at DB session, and that should also work with PonyRM. So we can just go ahead and we can look at our list of to-dos that already exist and make sure that we have a max number for the display ID. And this will be important in a second. And then we can go ahead and just create a new list item with that new display ID and description. And we can actually do that right now by doing add, and we'll do a string of something care a lot. Boom, and it added it. And that was as easy as that. And then now if we run the command again, and this should actually be completed. That's why I threw an error. Oh, yeah, okay, so this is actually what it should be. So this status thing that I declared here, I should be passing that into the table row. So it's doing the display ID, the description, and the status. And then now you can see Now, when I run it, we get the ID, which is our display ID. This is why it was important. And then we can see if it was incomplete or not, which So if we actually change this to something more appropriate, then when I run it, we can do that. But I mean, is that all we care about? I mean, there's more of the stuff. What if we want to delete it? Well, that's easy too. This magical fuck list function will go ahead and delete an item for us. So similar to the one before, we're now just taking in that display ID. So that's why the display ID here was important. If we add a bunch of random ones, and then we run it again, we could see that the display IDs are there. And then now on the left, we have this remove function that we added. So we're going to pass in a display ID number, and we're going to find that item, and then we're going to say, fuck it to that item. So we're going to select it, and then we're going to delete it, and we're going to reorder all of the items so that the display IDs stay in place. And I can demo that by using the command remove, and we'll remove number 3 just so we can see it hop. I forgot to add it to the group. And then after it has saved, we can see that it deleted item 3. And then if I list it again, remember number 3 was this section here with 6 2s. If I list it again, then we can see that this one technically moved up a slot to number 3. If you don't do it this way, then you can actually end up using the ID from the table, which wouldn't change because that's unique to each entry. Now, what if you slightly give a fuck about something? Well, you can actually do another update command, and it's easy enough to do it with click because we could just CLI command, and then we can add the arguments that matter to us, and in which case we want a display ID so we can select it. We want a description that we want to update to, and then it's the same thing. We get it from the database with the same ID, and then what we say is if we find it, we can go ahead and say this is the new description, and we get a nice little green updated thing here. But if we don't find one, then we can also display a red item for not found. So if I do this and try to update number 10, which doesn't exist, and we give it a description of, okay, sure, it'll say item 10 is not found, and it's in red, so we know that we really don't care about it. And then I guess the last thing that we could do if we actually do decide to change our minds later about it is that we can add another command in order to mark it as complete. This way we don't have to update description while we're at it. Technically, we can do it in one function, but if we really gave a shit about any of that, we wouldn't be here right now. Or we could actually call complete, and we will complete number 2, and I'll say it's been marked as completed. And now when I list things out, we'll see that we changed our minds and we actually do give a fuck about number 2. So that was it. Now you have a way to list all the fucks that you don't give in one place in your terminal with Python and click. So if you have any doubts about stuff, then you can go ahead and leave a comment. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and you'll be able to at least have something else to give a fuck about. Okay, I will catch you guys in the next video.